Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tees video, and Blizzard has just dropped an insane amount of news and changes related to patch 11.2, which is going to be the third and final season for the expansion, The War Within, and we're going to be covering all the most important class changes with regards to that. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. The first big point of news here is that Shadow Meld is getting some attention. It seems most notably for PvE. Again, I don't know if that means that they'll consider PvP because pretty much everybody's a Night Elf also in PvP. But in PvE, they're adding a flask that is going to simulate the Night Elf Shadow Meld. So that way players don't need to be playing Shadow Meld, basically. They'll just be playing something else, though. I don't know what it'll be yet, as I don't main Mythic Plus. But I wonder if there's a way for them to do this also in PvP. Wouldn't it be awesome if you just selected it based on appearance and then there was a consumable in game that you could choose the power that you wanted, so that way you could play whatever cosmetic you want to play as opposed to be forced into one that you may not want to play just because it has a performance output. I feel like this is opening up the door to that type of possibility, and that's why it's worth bringing up here, and that's located in the Professions tab of the changes for 11.2. We've got PvP changes here. The biggest thing out of these ones is the Evoker change, which many players are proclaiming to be the most overpowered thing in the game, which is that Nullifying Shroud is being redesigned. It's going to be basically when you Verdant Embrace, you will be immune to CC effects for 4 seconds. So every time you fly in to heal somebody, which is your biggest heal, you're also going to go completely immune to crowd control. Now, they have been implementing more and more abilities for healers that allow you to just negate crowd control, right? When we think about the Tree of Life PP talent, Angel Form for Holy Priest, these types of effects are increasingly becoming more apparent. But this one is a bit more rotational. It's not just going to be this one moment in the game where you get 10, 20 seconds of immunity. It's basically throughout the entire game. This is much stronger than a Greater Fade, lasting 4 seconds. It's almost like a Greater Fade pseudo Holy Ward, like a mix between them. I think they targeted this spell because it's when you become most vulnerable, right? You have to fly literally into melee range of a lot of things. So this way you'll be able to fly into melee range without just immediately getting snapped on. Likely it's going to require additional tuning if they do want to go ahead with this. I think the previous Nullifying Shroud was really strong in the classes that couldn't remove it, but it was very weak in the classes that could. So something like a Mage would actually like that you were playing Nullifying Shroud because they would just spell steal it and take it. But something like a Hunter or maybe a Ret Paladin would absolutely hate it because they'd have no way to get rid of it. So it was very polarizing. Whereas this one, it will probably just be equally OP to everything, right? Whereas this one was only OP to some things and basically weak against others. This is just baseline OP into everything. So it's a very big change that they're doing here for Preservation. And Preservation is currently considered to be the weakest healer, so maybe they're okay with giving them a stronger effect for the third season. With regards to that, this first wave of PvP changes, we don't really see a ton of stuff for Arena. It's mostly Battlegrounds, and they've stated that they're looking at the status of tanks in Battlegrounds and trying to basically equalize their power and balance them out a bit differently. So they're changing the way that Focused and Brutal Assault works, stacking up less damage taken over time, but also decreasing the amount of healing that you take. So focusing more on you're just getting whittled down as opposed to getting one shot when the stacks get really high, which I think is probably healthy. I think like healing across the board tends to be OP in environments where there's no dampening effect. And they are going to be nerfing the 4-set bonuses and 2-set bonuses, which are likely going to be the most overpowered set bonuses in the game up to this point. And I'm going to be making a video covering them independently of this because there's so much news to cover. So make sure, again, that you tune in for that because these are the crazy set bonuses they've done. And they're only nerfing them by 33. A lot of the times they've done 50% or more. So they're only nerfing them by 33%. So for Blood Death Knights, they're basically giving you Travel Form Burning Rush, where you start doing damage to yourself. You can't be slowed below 100% movement speed, and you become immune to movement effects and knockbacks. So you can't be knocked, and you can't be Death Gripped, I think. So they're just trying to give you like Burning Rush Travel Form. They're trying to like balance you out with Druids, I guess, in a unique way, but it will cost 1% of your health. But the trade-off for that is you're no longer going to be able to just Death Grip somebody indefinitely into corners. Death Grip is going to DR once you've gripped someone 3 times within 30 seconds. So Priest players, be happy. You're not going to be getting taken away anymore by Blood Death Knights. But Blood Death Knight might be a bit better of a flag carrier, as it looks like they want to shift the tanks into that role. Demon Hunters, Illidan's Grasp is randomly getting a 60% damage buff. I haven't seen a lot of Demon Hunters play this. It's a PP talent, obviously. It's competing with some other ones. But if it does a significant amount of damage, it could be really good. Honestly, I think the tossing effect is really good. But I think maybe in Arena it's not as much, but in Battlegrounds, likely it is. For Vengeance, they're adding a new PvP talent, which is Lay in Wait. Sigil of Misery will have 2 charges, and now it lays in wait for up to 90 seconds at your selected location. And this is supposedly so that you can kind of stop enemies from taking nodes from you. So you can like put a little thing on the ground like a trap, it'll proc, and then you'll be able to stop a cap from happening if you get CC'd. Trying to give you a little bit of that. It's interesting that they have like that high level of awareness, right, towards Battlegrounds, because I don't know, Vengeance Demon Hunter was struggling with that type of scenario in a rated Battleground format. And it's kind of making me wonder if I should maybe make an official forum post for some of the issues that we've been discussing throughout all these videos, right? And maybe this is something that BG Player talked about on the forums, because it seems really specific. For Arcane, you guys are getting a new talent called Netherflux. This replaces Touch of the Magi. It brands the target, increases the damage they receive by your next targeted spell by 100%, and it generates 4 Arcane Charges with a 15-second cooldown. So Touch of the Magi is really strong. It's the best button in the game for Arcane. So replacing that, it has to be pretty powerful. It's going to a 15-second cooldown, which is substantially lower, but only 100%. Like, does it increase the damage of all of the Arcane missiles into the target? Like, what is that? Every tick of it, or is it only the first tick? Because Arcane Blast is not hitting very hard. Now, if you timed this with an Arcane Surge, that would be... I'm surprised they're willingly putting this in the game, if that is the case, that they want you to Arcane Surge them for 100% of their health, because I thought that we talked about how that was bad. So I'm honestly a bit concerned about this PP talent. Slipstream will now reduce your movement speed by 10% in PvP only, so it's a little bit less movement speed for Arcane. I think that's fair. For Brewmasters, they're going to be doing Nizao's Essence will now additionally clear snares after casting Celestial Brew, Roller before Divine Brew, so again, focused on mobility for flag carrying. They are removing the Hallowed Ground PvP talent. I'm honestly not surprised. It's probably the most broken mechanic in the game at the moment, because it costs no mana to put Consecrate down. You can Consecrate down from your Judgment or your Blade of Justice if you're a Ret, and yeah, you can just be immune to snares constantly. Everyone on your team. It's literally just team-wide freedom, perma-dispelling, most broken mechanic in the game right now. Everyone was sleeping on it for a while until it got discovered. For Prot, Bear the Burden will now decrease the cooldown of Blessing of Freedom by 4 seconds, up from 2. That's probably the least effective flag carry change so far that I've seen. Void Volley is being renamed. It's because they're taking the name and using it for Shadow Priest, which are getting a complete class rework. We're going to look at the Shadow Priest and the Death Knight one. Those are like the main ones that are getting reworks for this patch. But this is just a rename. It's still there. It still works fine. Demonology, Master Summoner is no longer a PP talent. It's been redesigned and now available in the Demo spec tree. It's just going to reduce the call time of your Dreadstalker, Summon Valfiend, and Tyrant by 25%. Dragon Charge is going to be lasting 2.5 seconds, up from 1.5. Again, makes sense. Flag Carrier, just trying to get extra mobility. And you're getting a new PvP talent, Through Adversity. Second Wind will reduce damage taken by 10 to 40%, with larger attacks being reduced more. While Shield Wall or Last Stand has active healing reductions, do not apply to you. It's interesting that they're basically taking mechanics from other tanks and then giving them to the other tanks, right? Like Blood DK gets Travel Form, sort of. Prot Warrior is getting like Stagger. This is kind of like a Stagger mechanic. And that's how they're balancing. They're basically cloning them in a way. But I think unless you 100% clone them, there will be one standout reason that you likely want to take one over the other. But maybe it's such a minor difference that it won't really matter. We'll have to see. Thunderstruck is being redesigned. You're no longer getting spam rooted by Thunderclap. It's just going to be after casting Avatar, Shockwave, or Stormbolt, the next Thunderclap will root for 6 seconds, which is a lot longer root. So I think this is meant to help them with like Dragon charging away, rooting attackers with a stun, and then trying to escape or something, giving you more escape mechanisms related to that. So I mean, if those are the goals, these seem decent. Again, I don't spend a lot of time on tank in BG Blitz to know 100% for certain. But it seems like they're at least on the right track with the abilities for this. We'll have to wait and see how it actually plays out fundamentally. They are changing rules on dungeons, and if you're a PvP player, you're probably wise even talking about that. But they're basically going to be punishing players who leave too much. So does this mean they're going to start taking a more firm stand on people that are deliberately sabotaging gameplay in the long run, including PvP? We can only hope. Right, we can only hope. We can only hope they're going to be able to clamp down on some of the bans, right, or some of the bans that they've said they would do with regards to like queuing up with pre-mates and things like that. There's basically a massive amount of change, like the most ridiculous amount of changes that I've ever seen in regards to this. I'm going to be logging on the PTR and going over them independently. I just wanted to talk about a few that stood out to me and that I saw other players talking about on social media as like the big ones for the specializations here, because there's just so many that it's impossible to even really ascertain the exact value of what it's going to be unless you actually get your hands on it, which I'll be doing on the PTR, because there's some new animations as well for cool ones. So I'm very curious. Demonology is basically losing its big tyrant, and I saw a lot of players talking about that being possibly a big loss. The trade-off is that you get like the Master Summoner talent as a regular talent now, and maybe some ramping, but it means that what's the word I'm looking for? Demonologist, is that the hero talent tree? The one that summons in the Pit Lord? That one's probably getting weaker, that hero talent build. If you can't run Big Tyrant anymore, it's likely getting weaker. There was an overlapping change between all of the Shaman or all the healing specs, where they're trying to buff healing cooldowns in smaller group content and reduce their effectiveness in larger group content. So Healing Tide Totem is getting 100% buff, but beyond 5 targets. Now I'm hoping that they've coded this to be on players, and because so many classes summon in random minions and random pets that if that counts as a target and then suddenly you're up to 6 because of the random stupid undead pet the hunter summoned for 2 seconds got healed and now your healing tide heals less, that's going to be a pain. I'm going to only assume that they are going to do that because yeah, it would otherwise be not that great. I have seen players talking about Stormbringer being really OP possibly moving into the future with the set bonuses. I'll cover that in the set bonus video. And then Killing Spree is getting a redesign. So it's getting a 25% damage buff, and instead of being like the weird like ninja slashing stuff, you're gonna like blade storm pistol shot like Reaper. And I'm gonna get some footage for that also here onto the channel, but you basically it's kind of like Fist of Fury with how it channels, and you're just gonna be pew-pewing with the shotguns. So I think that's cool. That's a nice update. Cool animation change for it. I just hope it's not a tickle attack. Outlaw Rogue they've done a good job reining in the cooldown power of Outlaw in a PvP scenario. I would just like to see them now give it like a little bit of damage on top of the cooldowns. So we got Shadow Priest here, and you can see it's a textbook. It's an essay. The summary of this is basically that they're trying to make more talents feel good. They're going to be completely reworking the tree. They want to buff the end game tree talents that focus around old gods, which I thought was really cool. And there seems to be a really heavy focus on single target damage. So Shadow Crash, 300% buff. I know it's AoE, but I'm saying like direct damage as opposed to dot damage. I see lots of buffs for Mind Blast. I see lots of buffs for Death, Shadow Word Death, and kind of like focused in direct damage. And then the idols for Idol of your Sarge has been redesigned. Your damaging spells have a chance to call Grant of the Void or Call of the Void, which increases your haste by 15%. But when Call of the Void ends, you are afflicted with an overburdened mind and lose 10% of your haste for 8 seconds. Now you have other talents that let you like sap the haste from targets with PvP talents, so that you could get a remarkable amount of haste. And remember, this season's gonna have the highest secondary stats of any season, so that's why I'm paying attention to that, even though it has the negative downturn of minus 10%. Stacking a huge amount of secondary stats could be kind of crazy. And if they can successfully hit the point where you get more viable talents, you're getting more single target burst damage to be more relevant in those domains, I think it would be great. Idol of N'Zoth has been redesigned. You create horrific visions when casting harmful spells on enemies. At 50 stacks of horrific visions, your target sees a nightmare, which will deal shadow damage and grant you insanity. At 100 stacks, they witness a vision of N'Zoth, dealing high shadow damage and granting you insanity over 3 seconds. So it's a cool effect. It's going to take a while to get that to ramp up. 100 stacks, like I don't even know if it's enough time in a shuffle round to get that. But it could be like a crazy kind of like Doom style of hit from Warlock, where Doom takes a while, it ticks, and then with a massive explosion. I don't know if there's going to be an animation around this. I'll have to make a character and test that to see that out. But you can see that their focus there has been on trying to buff the idols to be more equally balanced with each other. They're also taking Mind Spike out of the game. They've decided that they'd rather just keep Mind Flay. They think it's more iconic to Shadow and not detract from it. And they're going to adjust some of the talents accordingly for the hero talent trees to be able to deal with that loss. And you can just see that it's a lot of cooldown reduction. Void Torrent's a 30-second cooldown, which seems crazy now. And Shadowy Apparitions are getting a lot of buffs. So they're buffing a lot of direct damage, a lot of crit-oriented damage, which I think is going to be cool because Shadow hasn't really felt like it's got like any sort of heavy burst in a while. I was kind of hoping that they were going to be pruning, but I didn't see any updates, especially Shaman, right? Like I'm highlighting with Shaman. I didn't see anything with regards to that. So maybe that's like a next expansion thing. But it was mostly just the Shadow Priest work. There's some healer buffs, which are nice. as we scroll through all of this, right? So it's nice to see, just more buffs towards healers in PvP scenarios. I think the big one for me that stood out was Mage. Yeah, Mage. So we got Icicles getting a 40% damage increase. So they're trying to balance the stats, which I think they really need to do a better job of on some specs. So for example, like Rogue, like if you play Outlaw Rogue with full mastery, you're useless. But Assassination Subtlety have to play full mastery. So Frost is similar. If you play, although maybe lesser extent than Rogue, but they're trying to make it so you can play different stats more. They have set themselves an impossible task to balance this game. You've got to balance whatever it is, 35 plus specs with 2 different hero talent variations, right? And whatever stats they pick on their gear to go with that combination of infinitely scaling options. I don't even know how they got the game as balanced as it is, with considering PvE and PvP and raids and dungeons and BGs to arena. Like, I'm not trying to be like a shill, or sucking up with saying this. Like, if I was having to do that, like, you are putting an infinite number of variables that are like, I don't even know how you can possibly account for this to get the game even remotely balanced. I was thinking like Legion templates was the only way you could do it. And I like the templates for the balance. Would have been nice if there was like a customizable slider to drag the stats around. So you can have a little customization there. But like, yeah, I don't know. But you might want to keep an eye on that. Meteor is also being updated. Meteor's been lacking punch, particularly in single target. So we're taking a swing at making it generally a more attractive option. So the enemy closest to the center of the Meteor will take 40% increased damage. So if you're really good at aiming your Meteor somehow to hit them dead on the center, you get a big hit of damage. Hyperthermia is being updated. Casting Pyroblast and Flame Strike during Hyperthermia increases the damage of Pyroblast and Flame Strike up to 150%. So we might see some Flame Strike builds, is what that's looking like. It's possible. And for Arcane, they're buffing a lot of the single target. Barrage is getting another... I can't believe this spell is getting another buff. They're buffing a lot of this single target damage. So maybe with that talent, the PP talent change down below, you get a lot of single target. But the big one is that they're chopping out Time Anomaly, which is your Bloodlust proc, which is like a big deal, especially with how high the stats we're going to be getting, right? You'd probably getting like over maybe 100% haste with Veins and everything else. So that's how they decided to target the haste scaling, I guess, is to just completely gut it out. They're just going to take Time Anomaly out. Like, no, we're done with this. We're taking it out. Tons of changes to a bunch of classes. I think the main ones, though, that I want to focus in on, as we're going to need a little bit of testing to be really fully breathing this out, was Preservation. We talked about it with the Verdant Embrace immunity to CC, but there's also a talent to get 2 charges of Time Dilation now. So yeah, I feel like that's gonna be really OP, and reversions with 2 charges. So I don't know if we're in that mode of balance where like this spec was really bad for a while, so now it gets to be the best. But it's a good idea to keep an eye on changes like that. Although changes this early tend to be tweaked the most, so that could change. And they did look at Flame Shaper again, significant numbers towards Flame Shaper to try and enhance that. They focused on buffing AoE healing for Resto Druid, so it's the same across all healers across the board. Death Knight, they were talking about you guys a lot. You guys are one of the focus specs, and I know you guys are really upset right now. So what's going on with Death Knight? Developers notes, with the Ghosts of Koresh, we're looking into reducing the number of cooldowns Unholy DK has and providing new tools to both apply and remove festering wounds. I think it's good. I think a little bit of keybind reduction. Maybe DK isn't I would have liked to see this for Shaman, but new talent, Plague Mastery. Critical strike damage of your diseases is increased by 25%. Choice note with Grave Mastery, which is critical strike damage of your minions, is increased by 15%. I like this. I really would like it if they built the talent trees in a way that it was like, oh, this buffs minions, so I could just take all the ones that buff minions. If this buffs my disease, I'll take the ones, or maybe I'd run a little bit of a mix. Maybe I want to mix, and you can put them together. I think that's a much easier way of like outlining the tree and understanding what the potential players are going to get out of the tree, instead of just random, this does this with this spell all over the place. So this is definitely leaning towards them trying to make sure that you have an identifiable playstyle from Frost, so dot damage or minion damage. New talent, Desecrate. Death and Decay gets replaced by Desecrate after it is cast. Choice note against Defile. Desecrate will consume your Death and Decay and crush enemies, dealing 150% of its remaining damage instantly and applying 2 festering wounds, granting the benefits of standing in Death and Decay. So it's just an AoE death coil almost that's going to consume the Death and Decay. I think they probably want that like that, so that like in dungeons where the fight's constantly moving, you can get rid of your Death and Decay and get some value out of it likely. Maybe that's what they're thinking. And it'll have the same benefit in PvP. Abomination Limbs being renamed to Legion of Souls and being redesigned. Summon a legion of clawing souls to assist you, dealing damage and applying up to 6 festering wounds over 12 seconds to nearby enemies, dealing reduced damage beyond 5, and grants you the benefits of standing in death and decay. It's a choice node, though, against Ray's Abomination. Ooh, that makes it hard to actually go for. But it gives you festering wounds, and I think Ray's Abomination does as well. I've only played a bit of Unholy DK recently with my 2400 challenge, so it looks like it's going to... I'm wondering what they're thinking, like where the use is of this. Also, does this DR, is this going to DR like the Blood DK, or is that Blood DK Death Grips only? We'll kind of have to see. But that will reduce the keybinds, right? You don't have to take both of them if it's a choice node. All Will Serve has been redesigned. Raise Dead summons an additional skeletal archer at you that commands Blighted Arrows. Blighted Arrow is an unholy arrow that deals shadow damage. When consuming sudden doom, your death coil commands your archer to fire additional blighted arrows at 80% effectiveness. That's cool. It's going to give your death coil some more meat. Epidemic will instead cause blighted arrow to ricochet and hit up to 2 inches. So you can get some cleave out of it. You can get some. That's nice. That's a cool touch. I think that's a cool touch to make death coil more interesting instead of just directly buffing it. Reaping has an additional effect. Soul Reaper's execute effect increases the damage of your minions by 10% for 8 seconds. Does it have to be in execute range in order to do that? Because then it's kind of poop. But if it doesn't, then this is a nice way of giving Soul Reaper some more relevance, right? It's just difficult to actually have the execute go off, especially in PvP. Players are just never that low for that long to time something like that. And I think even if it goes off, it doesn't do that much damage. Apocalypse now replaces Dark Transformation, if it is known, and also summons your pet ghoul on cast. Oh, that's a... Are you going to get, like, does it just Dark Transformation too at the same time? Because, like, I don't think you're going to want to lose Dark Transformation, but Apocalypse is so good. Decomposition. Virulent Plague has a chance to deal 100 to 200% of its damage dealt in the last 4 seconds. They're buffing disease builds. Unholy Pact now forms a shadowy chain between you and your pet. Oh, so that's going to replace the Dark Transformation, I think. That's their goal here. Festering Scythe overrides aura, now lasts for 30 seconds. Plaguebringer and Clawing Shadows is no longer a choice node. Does that mean you're just going to get Clawing Shadows and Plague? Improved Festering Strike is now a 1-point talent. And they removed Pestilence, Runic Mastery, recaptured Viscera, and Vile Contagion. I think it's interesting. I think they're focusing on strong parts of the fantasy for Death Knight. Although I feel like it already had some pretty cool fantasy coming into the war with it. It was just a numbers game. So hopefully the numbers game is going to be able to hit. For Frost Decay, you guys are getting... Oh my god, I have to keep scrolling. You guys are getting a lot. In Ghost of Koresh, we are revisiting the core building blocks of Frost Death Knight. We're making adjustments to reduce friction between how the spec uses its resources and to focus its power into more iconic abilities, alongside some new ones that we hope you will enjoy. So changing a bunch of talents. Glacial Advance is baseline. Frostbound Will, consuming Rhyme, reduces the cooldown of Empowered Rune Weapon. Oh, you're getting cooldown reduction, are you? That's going to make you a lot harder to predict. Runic Strikes increases the damage of Obliterate and Frost Scythe. Runic Overflow increases the damage of Frost Strike and Glacial Advance. Icy Onslaught, Frost Strike, and Glacial Advance now cause your Frost Strike, Glacial Advance to deal more damage and cost more Runic power. And this effect will stack until the next Runic Empowerment. So you can just ramp up big damage. Frostbane. When you cast Glacial Advance, each foe struck has a chance to transform your next Frost Strike into Frostbane. The chance increases with the number of Razor Ice stacks on the target. That's cool. I like that. I hope it has a cool animation. I'll be looking at all of these and getting you guys video clips on my shorts here in no time. Frostbane start a frozen onslaught that strikes twice, unleashing the chilling essence of winter. Dealing attack power % frost damage to all enemies caught within its wake with each strike. Each enemy struck reduces the damage dealt to the next foe by 5% down to 40. So it's just a big kind of cleave attack. We wanted to move away from tab targeting Frost Strike gameplay as it's difficult to execute and track, and use this opportunity to design a new capstone. So instead of tab targeting your dots off, you'll just cleave them all off. I think they're trying to get the game on console, bro. New talent, Killing Streak. Obliterate and Frost Scythe consume all killing machines to deal 25% increased critical strike damage and grants 1.5% haste for 6 seconds, or each stack consumed. Multiple applications may overlap. New third gate talent before obliteration. I like this so far. New talent, North Wind's Howling Blast now hits an additional target with maximum effectiveness. Rhyme increases Howling Blast by 75%. Big Howling Blasts, dude. They're not giving you dot damage. They're giving you big burst. Frost Reaper. Obliterate has a chance to tether the soul of its target and nearby enemies to yours. Frost Scythe will sever the tethers, dealing Shadow Frost damage to both foes. So you can apply and crack. It's kind of like overpowered Mortal Strike for Warrior. New talent, Howling Blades. Rhyme-empowered Howling Blasts unleash 2 icy blades at its target that deal frost damage and have 15% chance to grant Killing Machine with that big proc. So maybe there's going to be a build focused around Obliterate and Howling Blast, the same way that we saw the one down below focused around minions and dots. Frozen Dominion. Each enemy Frostworm's Fury damages grants you 8% mastery up to 40%. Oh my god, against pet classes, you're going to do so much disgusting damage with that. Empower Rune Weapon has been redesigned. You drain the will of the enemy to empower your rune weapon, dealing Shadow Frost damage and reduced damage to nearby enemies. Gaining 40 runic power and grants you Killing Machine. Has 2 charges with a 30-second recharge, and you get the cooldown reduction. Ooh. We found that there were too many passive effects that granted runic power, runes and runic power. While moving away from some of these passive effects, we want to give you the tools to use your resources more methodically. Empower Rune Weapon visuals have been updated, and the talent moved to Gate 1. See, this is the thing. I gotta make these cooldowns have sick animations. Like, people just want cool animations, bro. And they want to be tuned to be viable. Breath of Cindergosa has been redesigned. Call upon Cindergosa's aid in battle, consuming 6 runic power to deal frost damage every 6 seconds in a cone in front of you. Dealing reduced damage to secondary targets. 1.2 second empower. 2-minute cooldown. Has 3. Oh, it's an empower ability. You're getting frost breath. Like the evokers. Instead of... Oh, that's cool. Instead of just being an instant stun, I think that's way healthier for the game. I like this type of stuff slowly over time. I think the game will feel way better. At 1 charge, it will deal damage and last up to 8 seconds and refund 75% of its cooldown, though. At 2 stacks, frost damage instantly and lasts up to 15 seconds and refund 45 seconds of cooldown. And if you get it to 3 stacks, its damage is instant and it lasts for up to 30 seconds. Granted charge of Empower Rune Weapon at the start and 2 runes at the end. I'm glad that they're not afraid to take this charge mechanic now and take it out of just Evoker, because it could be really cool on other classes as well. Castable while moving with 30% movement speed. We're exploring new design with this iteration of Breath of Cindergosa. We want this update to give you more control over how you use the ability. I think it's also just easier to balance, right? Breath of Cindergosa on trash is impossible because the pack dies, you can't keep it up. This way you've got burst, AoE burst for every pull. So it's better in that sense, and might be viable in PvP too. Rhyme has been updated. Frost Strike and Glacial Advance have a 45% chance, and Breath of Cindergosa a 30% chance to cause the next Howling Blast to consume no runes and deal additional damage. Okay, so there's definitely a focus around Howling Blast. Might of the Frozen Waste has been updated. Wielding a 2-handed weapon now causes Obliterate to do 30% more damage, and Frost Sight 30% more damage. The rest of the effect stays the same. I kind of wish they just let people transmog, dual wield, or 2-hander on any spec for any reason. Like, just let anybody do any weapon they want at this point. Because I don't care. Like, people who want to dual wield are going to be mad if 2-hander is tuned better, and people who want to use 2-hander but dual wields is tuned better are going to be mad. So it's just like, let people transmog the thing they want. I don't think they care about the numbers that are hidden behind it. They just want to wear a 2-hander versus 2 1-handers. Frost Scythe has been updated. A sweeping attack that strikes all enemies in front of you for frost damage, deals reduced damage beyond 5, consumes Killing Machine to have its critical strikes deal 3 times normal damage. So just all visual updates, it looks like. Cleaving Strikes has been updated. Frost Scythe deals 20% increased damage during Morosa's Winter. So big AoE cleave. Everfrost is updated. Rhyme Empowered Howling Blast deals 50% increased damage to secondary targets. Remorseless Winter deals 6% increased damage to enemies hit. 10 times stacking. There's going to be a lot of ramping and burst. Rage of the Frozen Champion has been updated. Frost Strike and Glacial Advance have a 15% chance to trigger Rhyme, and Howling Blast generates 8 runic power while Rhyme is active. No longer a choice note against Frigid Executioner. Frigid Executioner has been updated. Runic Empowerment has a 20% chance to refund 1 additional rune. No longer a choice note against Rage of the Frozen Champion. Glacial Advance costs more runic power, though. Frost Strike costs more runic power. New animations. They cost more, but they hit harder. Enduring Strength doesn't increase strength as much. So some stat scaling, maybe taking some power out of your cooldowns, putting it into the baseline is what these numbers look like to me. They're going to be shifting a bunch of talents around. Obliteration, while Pillar of Frost is active, Frost Strike, Glacial Advance, and Howling Blast grant Killing Machine and have 20% chance to generate a ruin. That seems really good with the changes that were listed above. So, I mean, you guys are getting a lot of attention. Will the numbers hit? We don't know. Is this the sign that is going to be the patch of the DK because you guys have been bad for so long? Maybe. It might be a sign for that to come. So definitely some really cool stuff coming in here for this. I'm very interested to see how all of this ends up playing out. I'm going to be looking at the set bonuses in the next video. I just wanted to look at some of the major class ones, right? The Death Knight, the Shadow Priest ones, some of the PP ones, and some specific PvE changes that are going to be, highlighted in PvP, most notably with this update. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.